Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. Well, she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
Welcome back to the Casually Molly podcast. I am your host, Molly Ambergy, as you already know, or if you're just tuning in, we interview artists, entertainers, anything that you could possibly imagine that people are doing these days each and every other week, sometimes a little bit in between, but I am very honored to welcome artist Monkh to the podcast. Give it up for him. The crowd goes wild.
Pew, 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 pew. All this good stuff, professional beatboxer over here.
I was about to say, I love those sound effects, so that was awesome. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. No problem. Actually, fun fact, when I asked for a guitar at the age of 7, my mom bought me a turntable. And I was quite confused, but I became a pretty good turntablist or DJ in the meantime. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yep. Heard it here first.
I did not know that about you. You heard it here first. I love it. I love it. Monkh, before we go into the whole interview and spiel about who you are, what you do, I know you have a song called Skywalker out. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and where we can find it?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, I got really nerdy and got into Star Wars. And it was just, I grew up being a pretty spiritual kid, a lot into meditation and the whole works and everything. So once I dove into Star Wars and saw the correlation of how the writer just built all of that, the balanced life and spirituality, the lightness and darkness into the storyline, I was just enamored. I loved it. I loved everything about it. And so I kind of, if you listen to my music, I don't know if any of you have, but if you listen to it, all streaming platforms right now, go right now. Then you'll realize that I kind of talk about a lot of spiritual stuff and maybe political stuff or whatever you want to call it. So it was just kind of following the same lines as of what I usually talk about, but it was in the vein of Star Wars, therefore why I called it Skywalker. But it is really a song that talks about, kind of feeling alone, i.e. pandemic, being on lockdown. I was in my apartment all alone, downtown St. Louis. And so I was just kind of in that vein, and I took that time to really dive into my spirituality, do meditation and everything, and I felt like that was a really neat way to kind of let it out without being like, hey, this is a song about meditation and spirituality. So, voila, Skywalker.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for telling us a little bit about the background. I heard it when we were over at Midcoast. Oh, and James and Key are on it. There you can see it, Monkh, Skywalker. I personally listened to it on Spotify. It's a great song. I had it on repeat at my desk at my day job. And then, I had heard it at Midcoast, and I was like, I want to listen to the whole song. I know this maybe sounds like a general question, but when do you think you had that moment where it clicked for you, where you were like, I want to go into music professionally?
That's a good question. So, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and my brother was in a band. They were doing stuff, talent shows and regular concerts, and this was late 90s. Aging myself a little bit here. But so it was in the late 90s, and I just saw kind of what he was doing and how people responded to it. And it was before I really ever got, picked up an instrument seriously or anything. And I was just like, I want to do that. It was a little brother, big brother thing, just being super observative and wanting to do anything that he did. And then I did a talent show, my 8th grade talent show. I did Slayer's Rain and Blood with my band. I had a band at this point in time. We did Slayer's Rain and Blood. It's a heavy metal, thrash metal song that came out in the mid-'80s. Once again, aging myself. And after that, my brother was like, hey, you want to be in my band? And a month later, we were touring the United States. So that's at that point in time, that whole era, I don't really remember have an exact period of time. But in that era, it was like, yep, this is what I'm going to do forever.
All right. And so far, so good, I'm assuming. You were telling me that you were doing some work over actually on the West Coast earlier this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I, go to LA every so often. Pandemic slowed that down for me, but now that, this year I got to go once so far. So yeah, a lot of connections in LA. It's just one of those things that, you do something long enough and go to a place like New York City or LA or depending on, even Houston or Atlanta, depending on Nashville. And you just make connections and you're going to find something. So that's what I've done in the last 5-6 years in LA and got to the point where, I'm making music with some pretty heavy artists and producers and all that stuff. So it's really neat. It's a really neat thing. For anybody listening, any musicians or artists that maybe not have taken that trip yet, you're always going to go out there. There's a light of like feeling like you're going to be a small fish in a big pond or something like that. But I say have a different, have the opposite perspective, that you're a big fish in a small pond, because you get into the right crowds there, or a place like LA. And you're gonna feel that way. You're gonna probably feel more appreciated there than you are even in your hometown.
Absolutely. I felt the same way when I went out to LA. I did a show out there, and my boyfriend and I, he also does comedy, so we went out to LA for 9 days. I used some vacation time, and I've always appreciated the love and respect for music out in LA, especially in the live, like my live music industry. Was there a specific venue out there or a show that you did that was really memorable to you in that area?
Yes, there's a lot of stuff, to be honest with you. Some stuff I don't want to talk about, but online, or on air.
Sure.
But yes, I played 2014 or 15. I played at the House of Blues on the Sunset Strip. It's no longer standing. They demolished it, I think, like a month after I played it. See, this is the effect I have on venues, so hire me, guys. And so, yeah, I played that, and I walk in, and the guy who books me is, for some reason, the door guy, too. I don't know how that happened, because it's usually not the case. But he's the door guy. As he's sitting there, and he's smoking a joint while he's rolling up another one, and he's got his list of names and everything that you need to be a door guy, and box of money. And I was like, yo, what's up, man? And he's like, yo, Monkh, dude. He's like, check it out. You'll never believe it. And he brings me in closer, and he's like, guess who's sitting at the bar right now? And I was like, who, man? Because I was like, it wasn't one of my first times to L.A., and my uncle was with me who has lived in L.A. since the 80s, and I was like, who's at the bar? And he's like, it's Monkh, bro. The dude from the show Monkh. I can't think of his name, but yeah, he apparently was at the bar too, and he was like, so Monkh is here, bro. It's crazy. And he goes to hand me a joint. I'm like, I'm good, man. And just kind of walked past. I'm like, where do I put my stuff? And so now, yeah, sure enough, I started playing, and dude came down and got a drink for me, and we shared some conversations. I am terrible as far as like remembering exact moments in time, but yeah, that happened. He got me drunk, and it was a good night.
Sounds good to me. Sounds like a great time. You should definitely be hired, though. You've been playing a lot of venues here. For those of you who don't know, our podcast is casually based in St. Louis, Missouri. But you've been playing all around the area. Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, any venues here that you've enjoyed, and what kind of shows have been happening around? I know you were at the Gramophone, too, recently. Is that correct? Yes,
I enjoy all the venues in St. Louis. I enjoy all the venues everywhere. Hire me. No.
Yeah.
No, that's serious though. Every venue I've played, especially this year, working under the pandemic rules and or building back up due to the pandemic. I mean, everyone is doing such an amazing job. I think everybody is, I think, even if not more organized than they were before the pandemic as far as the music side of things go, because I think they realize how hard it hit the music world and the entertainment industry in general during the pandemic. So I think there's a lot more introspective, or there's a lot more focus on the role that we play inside of venues and bars and whatnot. So I will say, like, a lot of them, for Urban Chestnut, Gramophone, Seven over in Belleville, Broadway Oyster Bar, all have been great to me. There's a new farm out in northern, I don't know, somewhere, House Springs, I think it is, Missouri. Rustic Roost Sanctuary, amazing place. They have farmers markets every Wednesday. Probably having it. Is today Wednesday? Today's Wednesday.
Today is Wednesday. Yes.
Yeah, so they're having one right now. Yeah, amazing place. That was probably one of my newest ones that I've played at that I was just totally amazed and loved the whole thing. So yeah, I would say, like, every venue has its different thing. Some you're the spotlight and everyone's focused on you, and some you're the background, and you just kind of have to figure out which is which, But everything has its place, and yeah, I love all the venues. Gramophone, shout out to Gramophone because the Gramophone, I think I've never had so many people request music for me, and usually people are like, oh, I don't take requests, but I was just feeling it that day. I think it was a few Saturdays back during the day. It's like a 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. set, and people were just requesting all 3 hours, just requesting music, and I was just looking them up on my phone, reading what the notes were, and just singing it, and it turned out really cool. Never done that before. And I just was kind of like, I know I can do this. I might not know the songs perfectly, but I know I can do this. And it made everybody happy, tips all the way around. And then Gramophone was always accommodating with food and drink and everything, So shout out to them.
Well, definitely shout out to the Gramophone. It's one of my favorite places in town. That's why I wanted to give a shout out to them. We're going to go deeper into Monkh's artistry and everything that he's doing just right after this quick break. We are back talking with Monkh, musician, artist. I mean, this is what I love about doing this podcast, right? Is that I have people who are very multifaceted, do a lot of amazing, great things. Monkh, can you describe what your style would be musically? Like, if you could put that maybe into a word, a couple of sentences. Like, when people go like, hey, what kind of music do you do? What would you tell them?
Water. Yes.
Interesting.
Water.
Okay.
It could be anything. Could be in any form, in any way. I know people always want some kind of specific genre to be able to reference and place them into certain things. But the way I taught myself and the way I've learned through time, the past 20 years of playing, is just that, base it off of emotion. Obviously there's science to music and everything. But once you get past the science and you can be able to start diving into your emotions and seeing how you can correlate that into frequencies and bring them out in an organized manner, then it doesn't really matter what you're trying to make. It just is kind of what it is. So I don't know. It's hard to say because right now I would say I sound like soul, on one day, and maybe if I'm more upbeat, I'd be funk music. But just last night, I wrote a metal song that was pretty heavy metal, not anything alternative like System of a Down, more like Cannibal Corpse or something really death metal like, and then I was producing a rap song today, So it's one of those things where it's just based off of emotion, and you can transfer and obtain these different emotions in different times and know where to place them and what to do with them. So yeah, water.
Wow, I love that. Big fan of water, so I'm sure I'm going to be a big fan of you. Yeah,
it's needed.
Same. I was about to say, do you have a process into when you're approaching these different genres that, go into this osmosis? Is there a certain process that you have, or do you just kind of feel like everything comes to you and you dive right in?
Yeah, I don't know. I think at this point in time, it's really just start with the drums and bass. You know, that's the backbone of each song, no matter what kind of music you're playing. So start with that and then build from there. And there's always sounds going on in my head, so it's just a matter of, like I said, transferring them, kind of organizing them to, well, okay, these ones go over here, and these ones go over there, and this is that, right? And then placing them onto, a DAW or a recording platform, for that matter, program. But yeah, so I would start out with drums and bass, man. There's really not much thought besides that. I don't really do seances or anything like that, you know. It's at this point in time in my life, I really just kind of wake up, sit down, press record, and just go. And it's just my process.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we just did just now for the Casually Molly podcast.
That's the way I like it.
The way we like it. I love it. No, I've had the ability to get to know you and get to work with you. You've helped, even behind the scenes in my podcast. So it's just really awesome to actually sit down and talk with you and hear all about what you do. What I always want to know is, like I said, we are based in St. Louis. What brought you to the city of St. Louis? Because I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast are local. And how do you feel like, I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but how do you feel like the music scene is received in St. Louis, Missouri?
So I'm born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, on the east side, over in Illinois. But like I said, I was playing shows over here in St. Louis in 2002, over at the old Creepy Crawl that no longer stands. Was probably one of my favorite places because it was just like a hole in the wall with all the things. But no, to answer your question a little bit better without rambling too much, I love St. Louis. I think I've been everywhere in this country at least and listened to local music from each place, and there's just no musicians like I've known musicians in St. Louis. There's no hustle like I've seen hustle, but in St. Louis. I mean, the whole nine, really, there's always a pros and cons to any area, but as anyone should know, if you're a St. Louis, and since the beginning of St. Louis, it's been a rough town. It's been we've gone through a lot, but we are resilient, and every time that something comes our way, we always come out a lot stronger, and that shows a lot in the artist scene and the entertainment scene in general. Whenever during the pandemic, we had so many venues shut down, and it was terrible. But as we saw, just the beginning of this year, and now especially now, those are new venues. They're bright. Everything's new again, and we're ready to get out and get going again. So I love St. Louis. That's what keeps me here, even in the light of the fact of I feel like I've done the best that I can do here. To be honest, to be fully transparent, I've kind of hit my ceiling years ago, so I'm kind of just in a spinning whirl. But I wouldn't rather do it any other place than here, other than where the big industry is, like New York or LA or whatever. But if I could choose any place to build up my talents or anything, there's no place like St. Louis.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm not originally from here, but I feel like as an artist and as a comedian and being in theater, I feel like St. Louis has actually played a really big part in that growth and that change. So I can relate to you on that. So it's really cool to relate on that with a native who understands. What I did want to ask you, we talked about we meeting you had just mentioned, now things are opening up, there's some bright new venues. Do you feel as an artist, you have made some positive transitions in your creating due to, even though sometimes I'll have artists on and they're like, I don't really like the package that it came in, obviously, but I did push myself to newer limits or newer strides and took all the limitations that I thought I had because of what we had been going through. Do you feel like there was a rebirth for you as a artist and creator during that time frame?
You mean like the pandemic time frame, or just yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, I like to I get bored with whatever I'm doing after so long, and anything that I do. So especially with music, because it's such a focus in my life. So it was going to happen either way. The rebirth was going to happen either way. But the amount of focus I was able to actually do during the pandemic of focusing in. I had a whole album ready to go 2019 and everything, and was going to lock and throw it out there. March 13th is when we got shut down, and that was the day that was just kind of like, oh, okay, I get to go into my cave and focus a little bit harder, you know. And I still haven't put out that album because it was like, you know, I found a new sound for myself, and I'm still cultivating it and still cultivating it. And Skywalker is one of those songs that came out during that point in time, you know, where I had that sound before the pandemic, but it wasn't quite as focused, you know, and now it's even more focused than Skywalker is. So look out for new music. But yeah, I definitely rebirthed, gave more time to being a multi-instrumentalist with keys and bass and drums and everything, and focused a little bit less on guitar, to be honest with you, just because it's what I'm kind of known for, my stronghold, my primary instrument, and focused a little bit more on everything else, my vocals and songwriting abilities. So yeah, I learned so much, so much, and even on the back end, the importance of videography and editing and you know, which really led me here. So yeah, so much rebirth in that light, definitely.
Absolutely. And I feel like, of course, like you kind of touched on this a little bit, there's always a rebirth and a change. And as an artist, you do go through a lot of different chapters and you're creating and focus and whatnot. But I do always find it very inspirational to hear people like you who are very talented just be so humble and saying that, you know, there was going to be a rebirth and there was going to be a change. And I love that you were able to focus on other aspects too that create and are under the umbrella of what Monkh is. I'm always curious, do you just play the guitar as well, or do you have other instruments that you have in your collection of repertoire?
Yeah, so I mean, I've played guitar for a little over 20 years, but I grew up with a little bit of everything in my house. So we had a full-on 5-piece drum kit, you know, guitars, basses, the microphone setup. You know, like I said, my brother was in a band, and it was that whole, like, you know, set up in the basement kind of thing. We lived in a Victorian house in Belleville, Illinois, and we just set up in the basement, full band setup. So you know, when he wasn't home, I would mess around with everybody's stuff and learn like that. And then once they realized I was actually good, you know, there was a day I was sitting there just playing and hadn't learned anything yet. Nobody taught me anything, and I had figured out how to play, like, I don't remember what it was, like an Iron Man or some Black Sabbath song or something like that. Just off the ear, was playing on the radio, and you know, I was 8 or 9 at that point in time, and somebody was like, yeah, you're good. And then from there on, they're like, yeah, touch our stuff, bro. And so yeah, I learned all those instruments in that point in time. So yeah, I mean, really, I would say, you know, the basic kind of 5-piece band setup is what I'm really good at. Now, in the past 5 to 10 years, I've learned that I've gotten pretty good at string and brass arrangements as well. I can write them down. I cannot play like violins, or I can't play any brass instruments. Although my first instrument was a clarinet, which is a woodwind. But yeah, I can't play any brass instruments or anything like that, but I can arrange them inside programs, and obviously, you know, notation as well. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, pretty much everything. Like I said, I get bored a lot of what I'm doing. So if I'm sitting there and I'm playing guitar too much, I'm like, you know, let me learn something else, you know, or something of that sort. So I like to say I know a little bit of everything, but I might not be too great at all those things. But yeah, you know, it just comes with the territory of my severe addiction to music. You know, it's just kind of like, oh, what other, you know, hole can I dive into this week? So yeah, I play a little bit of everything, I guess. Listen to my music. I don't know.
I love it though. I love
that
you. I just love that you tried everything. Like, and I say tried not in past tense, but trying everything. And I love that you're like, well, what's next? You know, that's what I always admire in people that create things, is that they're always like, and what's going to be the next step? And what else could I try to do? Like, it's just always very inspirational to me, which brings me to the question. I know obviously you write your songs. Is there a specific inspiration that comes from that. Like sometimes as a comedian, I will write about like family experience or just observational things that I see during the day. But what inspires as a musician, as somebody who's not really a songwriter, what inspires, pen to paper or, typing on the computer? What inspires the lyrics that we hear on your different music songs and albums?
Well, as far as the lyrics go, I will say that I've always written. I've got tons of, just like any other writer, as far as lyric writers, rappers go, I got tons of notebooks and everything, but I am a composition writer first and foremost. And so the composition, the instrument side of it comes out really quick, really fast. That's the side of the emotions that I have down pat. The lyrics kind of take a little bit longer in that respect. And it's because, I guess, I don't know which other way to put this besides in my perspective of like taking it too serious or something. But they always, like I said, if you go on to any streaming platform and listen to my music, that's Monkh, you will see that a lot of my music is kind of on the civil rights, political realm, but uplifting in the same respect. And so really, I think it's as easy as just, and I'm a big history buff. It's just as easy as kind of like either reading up or something happening, outside, police brutality, the systemic racism. I mean, you name it, I got something to say about all of that stuff. Right. And so that's really what puts the pen to paper there. I've never been the type of lyric writer that's like, I want to write a song about, and no offense to any, because I love all music or anything like this. This is just not the type of person I am, to where I'm like, well, let me write a song about my grandma, but make it metaphorical to this or that. I'm a straightforward writer. What I want to say is going to be said right there and then, and you're going to know what I'm trying to say, So usually it is the lines of something happening in the world that gets me writing. But I've tried to recently, I'm like, okay, so this is the way I am. Let me try to go the other way and write a little bit more about, whether it's relationship style songs or whatever it is. So I've been diving more into that, and it's been really interesting, to say the least. And I would say, obviously then it's like, my girlfriend made me mad or something, or getting emotion out about, something I might not be over from a past experience or something of that sense. But usually it is of the political realm, or of the spiritual realm that kind of breaks that pen on paper.
Absolutely. I love that to know this now, and especially as I continue to listen to more of your music and discover more about you as a person, a friend, and a musician. I'm going to keep all of this in mind. So I greatly appreciate that answer. I know that you and I have kind of talked about meditation and whatnot. And I think you have a podcast about that. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. Mind, Body, and Monkh on Loco Radio.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how you got that all started?
So I was just ranting a lot on my Instagram stories, just about, anything spiritual. And one of the managers of Loco hit me up and was like, actually Key, as we know Key on the Casually Molly podcast, she hit me up and was like, yo, you should do a podcast like this. And I was like, I always thought about it. I just don't want to come off like I know everything and try to be looked at as a guru or anything of that sort, because it'll throw off my whole spiritual path. It'll get in my head and all types of stuff. But essentially what happened is that, we started it, we started the Mind, Body, and Monkh podcast. And, I thought of the name and did all the graphics and everything myself and everything. And then, obviously Key produces and does the camera work. And it was really just every episode, just kind of finding somebody who doesn't usually get a voice in anything or spirituality or business or anything, but finding people who are business owners and some way or another lining up with the topic that I'm talking about, whether it's healthy eating or if it's yoga or whatever the case is, right? I've had tarot card readers, the whole nine of beliefs, and finding that link of kind of like what brought them to that, that point, what, where their spirituality links up with their business lines. And so it's been really awesome. I love it so much. It's a hard muscle though. Like I said from the beginning, like it's a hard muscle because I'm the type of person that I do want to go off on my rants of, oh, this is what I believe in and all these things. But I realized that that's not necessarily the place. And it took me a minute, probably the first whole season, to realize like what I could actually do with the podcast itself. Besides like just be ranting like that. So yeah, I love it. I love having that podcast. I love everybody that I've met in the podcast. That's what podcasts are amazing. You meet so many awesome people, and it's this cool conversation going back and forth. So yeah, I started guided meditations in the meantime, and I think that was the biggest revolution for me. A revelation. It's kind of the same meaning, right? But yeah, I think that was the biggest thing for me. That was like, whoa, okay, this is having an effect here. People are really digging this guided meditation thing. And so that's something that I've been marinating on. I've kind of focused back on my music right now. But once I dive back into the Mind, Body, and Monkh podcast, it might be that strict focus on guided meditation, because I see how much it affects people and how strong it is. That I feel like there's something there that needs to be cultivated a little bit more.
Absolutely. I definitely feel that manifestation as well. I feel like sometimes, like I remember when I first heard about meditation, I was like in my early 20s, and I remember being like, oh, that's such bullshit. Like, that's not going to get me focused. Like, that's not going to help at all. Like, you know how it is. I'm like, oh, I know what I want. I'm going to do what I do. I was very like, same person I am now, but once I started opening myself up to that and taking that noise that was in my head saying, this isn't going to work, I feel like it's made me a better writer, a better curator, a better creator in anything. Would you say that, meditation and, focusing on mind, body, soul has made you a better musician in a sense, or not even a better musician, just kind of like your focus and your process into creating your artistry?
Completely, in every single way, informed, not just a better musician, but a better human being, a very much more thoughtful and compassionate human being at that. As a child, when you get really good at something and everybody around you is telling you you're amazing, you're the best, you're a prodigy, which weirdly enough, that was kind of like what was happening in my life. It gets in your head and you don't know how to take care of that. You don't know how to push off the bad things that come along with that and cultivate the good things. And that's a lot what was going on in my mind at the time, outside of even just my daily life and how I grew up. But so that's where meditation came in at such a young age for me. I was 13 or 12. Really when music entered my life, meditation did too. I was trying to find an escape was what happened there. I was trying to find an escape for things that were going on in my life from a young child. And so music and meditation came into my life, and I kind of made both of them a mandatory thing. So by the time I was 18, definitely still was a lot of an 18-year-old boy. But the meditation has helped me so much that it allowed me to rehearse a lot longer without like being off focus. It allowed me to be focused a lot more without worrying about teenage things, right? It allowed me to be more patient with my life, with what I think success was at the time and is now, still going through it all. It's funny, it's the second that you might think, oh, I got this. I'm this far in my meditational journey. It's like you just drop completely down to level 1 and start over again. I can't even explain in words how much it's helped me, because I'm still realizing, and I don't know if I ever will realize, but it's become in every thing that I do. I'm meditating in every moment in time, and when I'm not, is when I'm making my mistakes. But it's something I want to say this too, that while I'm playing guitar, I've kind of made it a thing that's a very deep meditation for me. I haven't quite been able to do it with other instruments as much as guitar, because I've just focused on that as my primary so much. But while I'm playing guitar, that is a straight meditation for me. And that's kind of where I'm in my zone. Like if you've seen the movie Soul, the Pixar movie Soul, and that place
I
that they go
haven't
to.
seen it yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
they go to a place. I don't want to give up too much, but when you're in your spot, your zone, pretty much, you go to this place that's kind of like the afterlife. It's not really, it's just kind of like that collective consciousness place. That's where I go. That's kind of the same place you go when you're meditating as well. So when people, gurus, all alike say, you can meditate all during the day, no matter what, you don't need to be in this position or whatnot, breathing and whatnot. Oh, well, you need to be breathing because you need to be alive. But
you just made me laugh so hard. I don't know why that happened. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Woo. Musicians can be kind of funny. Anyway. Yeah, you can meditate no matter where you are, and that's just really what it is. It's not something to think too hard about. It's just to keep in your peripheral that this is, I don't want to say something because it's always going to put something in somebody's mouth, but like, this is what we are. This is where we came from, and I'm here in this present moment right now, and this is what I'm, and I'm going to accept anything that comes my way. Kind of just having that mind state.
Absolutely. Especially that, other than I haven't seen Soul yet, I related to everything you just talked about, especially that last sentence. Like, I definitely feel how sometimes it's like, you know what, sometimes in the beginning, even pre-pandemic, I would always be a little concerned, like, should I take this opportunity? I would always kind of second guess, and I feel like I'm not doing that anymore, which is a good feeling. And I really have meditation and taking the time to think about these things and think for that. So I totally am on the same page. But yeah, speaking of funny, I don't know why I was like coughing, laughing. I don't know what just happened, but it's okay. It's a compliment. See, I'm doing it again. Allergy season for sure.
Blame it on the allergies.
I'm going to blame it on the allergies. Took a Liquor D today, and apparently it didn't work out. It's okay. What I'll ask you, when you go to a show, speaking of kind of like connecting with yourself, have you ever had for example, for comedians, we always kind of laugh if we have like a really cool interaction with an audience member, not necessarily a heckler, but maybe after the show you meet somebody, they say something nice, maybe they disagreed with something, but it's a little bit of a different genre and vibe. But as a musician, after a show, was there ever an audience member that you maybe connected with that had just something really nice to say, or just a good connection with you? Or maybe it wasn't nice, who knows?
I've been playing shows since I was 13, so a flood of things came in my mind.
Right.
And let me start off with the funny one first.
Okay.
And this is, I could say whatever I want on this show, right? This is not,
Oh, yeah.
Is this
Sorry,
FDA
I'm
approved?
Like, my nose is running.
FDA approved?
Yeah. Oh, this is
Okay.
great. Yeah.
Cool. So when I was, when I was probably like 14 years old, and I was playing heavy metal back then and packing just venues, completely packed. It was just madness, just almost out of a movie. People were just beating the crap out of each other, wall to wall, just throwing down girls and all that kind of stuff. So we played this show. Don't remember where it was, but it was probably like 2005, 2006. And this girl comes out, and mind you, like I said, 15, 16 years old. We're still in high school. And this girl finds me when I'm loading all my stuff back into the car. And my best friend, one of my best friends, my bass player, Ben's parents were standing right there. And his parents were old rock stars and all that stuff, so they know the life and everything. That's a whole other story. But yeah, so this girl comes out, and she's just like all in my face. And now, if you know me, I've always been this way. I don't play to that kind of life. I don't play to that groupie lifestyle kind of thing. So I've always been a little bit kind of hesitant and annoyed by it. And I was really forefront when I was a kid. So this was one of those times. And so she was all in my face, and I was trying to be nice and everything. But she was like, she said something along the lines of like, your guitar made me orgasm. And before I could say anything, Ben's mom was like, you're a whore.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so that was at least the story that I was thinking about when you said like think of a story, but that's definitely not like a heartwarm story, because like she was like, oh, your guitar makes me orgasm, and then my friend's mom just right away she was just like, oh, you're a whore, and the little girl just like ran off really quick. She was completely terrified, and probably hated her life, and I don't know what happened to her. I hope she's okay. If you're out there listening to this, Yeah, I hope you're fine. Anyway, so a heartfelt one. I don't know. It happens. It happens a good amount of the time. I think more than anything, like a couple come to mind for a song I have called "I Swear." Just very heartfelt, uplifting song. It's folky, so it's really easy to focus on the lyrics and stuff. And just to hear what that's done for people. I've had a buddy of mine that's a pretty prominent dubstep DJ, tour the world, all types of stuff. And he hit me up one time and, told me that after playing a show with 1 million people on stage, he went home, or he went to his hotel and did some LSD, and then got in the shower and turned on my song, "I Swear," and then just sat there and sung it for like 4 hours straight, and didn't realize he was in the shower the whole time. And he said it just made him feel so good about life and good about everything and where he was at, and it was a part of that moment. So I've had stuff like that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then other songs later on when I was doing Monkh and the People, just people coming up and seeing the dynamics of the band, all types of different people. Monkh and the People was a 10-piece funk group that I manned and put together back in 2016. And just all different types of backgrounds of people. We all got together. We are family still to this day. And so people would just come up and be like, "Man, I just love your dynamic that you have going on here, the energy that you guys have and what you're talking about as far as like, civil rights and everything as far as that goes." It's just, I think it brought some kind of hope for people. And that's essentially why I do what I do. You don't realize it when you're sitting there writing the song. You're not like, I want this to change the world. I feel like that's a really backwards ass way to look at writing like that. So when it comes and it happens and somebody's like, "This has changed my life," you're just kind of like, "Whoa, wait a minute." And you're like, "Okay, yeah, that's right. It does have, might have the power to do that." So those are at least the ones that have come into my mind and stuck. So yes, the one girl that when I was a kid, my buddy that does acid all the time, and then the multitudes of people that came up and told us how great the dynamics and everything was with Monkh and the People was.
Wow. I love both of those stories in like very different ways for each one. So I appreciate you sharing that.
I like to give you a little bit of everything,
Well, yeah, that's your MO, Monkh. A little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. What I will ask you, as I ask everybody that comes on this podcast, first of all, thank you for joining me. This has been absolutely wonderful. Like I said, for those of you who listen to the podcast, thank you. But if you're newer to this podcast, I was so happy to have Monkh on because he is very talented. You have, like I said, you've worked tech-wise for my podcast. We've talked about you. You've had like some little tidbits multiple times, but I've never really gotten to sit down with you and like actually chat with you about what you do and what you're about. So I really appreciate it. What casual advice would you give to people, maybe if they're pursuing the music industry or, even just on their journey through their many artistic endeavors? What advice would you give yourself previously that you know now? What casual advice?
Don't just do it because you love doing it. Don't worry about how many posts you're making a day. Don't worry about what you're doing as far as social media goes. Don't worry about keeping up with anybody but yourself. Do it because you want to do it. You're going to get a lot of yeses. You're going to get a lot of nos. Don't worry about either of those. Just do it because you love doing it. Because that's what's going to lead you through all of those times. You might one day get the best news of your life, and either in the same day or a day later, have something going on which is the worst news of your life, and those two things are going to make you want to give up. But if you really love what you do, you're going to have no other choice but then to do it. So that's the thing. It's just love what you do. And in that, you won't ever stop doing it. And don't listen and don't worry about the social medias. Don't worry about having to drop an album or a single this many times a year and all these things. Don't worry about that. If that's your MO, then do it. If it's not, then you don't have to do it. And all that's off your shoulders. So do whatever you're doing. Just make sure that it's what you love to do, and you're going to be solid from there on.
Absolutely. I feel like everything, obviously, you get a lot of different fundamentals along the way, but definitely when you first start out as an artist, you're absolutely correct. You really do have to love it. It can be a long road, it can be a hard road, but as you can see, with all the accomplishments that Monkh has, it's very much worth it. Which, speaking of, Monkh, what do you have coming up that we should know, and where can we find all your music?
Yeah, so before that, I was wanting also to add this too. There's something I'm finding out about, to piggyback off that last question there. It's like something I'm finding out is that success is a lot like happiness. It's not necessarily like a destination. It's just a mind state. That's kind of where I'm at in my life right now. It's like you're like, okay, well, once I have this, I'm going to be successful. Once I have this, I'm going to be successful. It's a lot what we do with our happiness, and happiness and success usually go hand in hand. But the thing is that we're always stretching the barrier, right? And we're never necessarily reaching either. So in turn, like, it's just a mind state. So I'm successful right now. I've done all these things, and there's a lot of stuff that I still have to do and whatnot. But like, I'm successful in the fact that, like, if I stop today, or if my life stops today, or whatever, I feel successful in the fact that, I have a loving relationship with my daughter. I've done amazing things musically and outside of music that, brought me everything that's around my life right now is because I play music. All the people I know, everything that I do has been brought for some reason because I picked up a guitar when I was 9, So like that alone just feels successful to me. But what I have coming up and where you can find me, I'm playing Urban Chestnut September 18th from I believe it's from 5 to 8 p.m. Then I am playing Pop's Blue Moon with a band September 24th, and that'll be 7 to 10, I believe. And then October 1st, Broadway Oyster Bar, another full band show that I'll be having. Trying to get the full funk band coming out, Monkh and the People style stuff. So if you're like an upbeat funk music, kind of a retro night kind of thing, October 1st, Broadway Oyster Bar, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., just straight funk and soul music coming at you. And where you can find me is, number one, I would say go to Google and type in Monkh, and then you'll see everything that I have to offer there, as musically at least. Hopefully all that other stuff's on Backpage. Otherwise, yeah, Instagram's right down there, _Monkh_. Yep, and my Facebook just got deleted, so we're working on that, but we're going to bring that back soon, and that's usually facebook.com/monkhus, which comes out Monkus.
Nice. That really actually makes me feel better, because I tried to Facebook message you for this, and I thought I got blocked. So I am like, oh, no.
So many people came to me. Yeah, so many people were like, oh, you blocked me? And I was like, I wish I did. Shoot. Over 10 years of Facebook got deleted and hacked and deleted. Like, crying over in a corner secretly.
I was like, all I want is to have Monkh casually on my podcast. So I was like, hey, Chris, is Monkh at Midcoast Studios? What's going on, Midcoast Media? But that's what I love. I love the Midcoast family. Monkh, yes. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you.
At the end, I appreciate you. We could just go back and forth about this all day.
Oh, yeah.
But what are you going to casually do now that our episode is over?
I'm going to casually get some food. Probably, enjoy the rest of the day as far as the weather goes. And once again, probably light something up and have a relaxing night. All
right. I like how that sounds. Well, I will casually see you soon, hopefully in person, but thank you for joining me for this virtual interview. Stay tuned, everybody. At the end of this episode, we're going to play Monkh's song, Skywalker. Thank you very much. Casually subscribe, everybody. Bye, Monkh.
See ya. We can take this on, we will win this.
we're building up all kinds of pressure. So be kind to your love, because these times are stressful. And have love for the people when the streets are shaking. Cause when you come back home, you will find me waiting. Jedi master flying, warp speed, time and rebellion is at the turn. Be careful not to miss your exit, mess around and get hurt. I come from the streets of darkness, a light in a world of lost souls. Lift you up and cure blindness, righteous, pure bliss. The last one of my kind, I'm feeling out of mind. Disappear at night, meditate through life. Feeling out of mind, the last one of my kind. Meditate through life. Lately, we're building up all kinds of pressure. So be kind to your love, because these times are stressful. And have love for the people when the streets are shaking. Cause when you come back home, you will find me waiting. Lately, we're building up all kinds of pressure. So be kind to your love, because these times are stressful. And have love for the people when the streets are shaking. Cause when you come back home, you will find me waiting. We can't take this on, we will win this war. We can't take this on, we can't win this war. We can't take this on, we will win this. We